welcome to our ACE session. A stands for A.C.E, Ask, Challenge, and Encounter. So the name of Cardinal, in Latin, the words are Cardinalis, and from the word cardo, which means pivot or hinge. Used in this context of church leadership, then the word cardinal means principal or eminent. Since the time of Pope Urban VIII, he granted cardinals the official title of eminence, so to reflect their pivotal role in the church. We know that since the very beginning, traced back to the time of St. Peter, Rome has been the center of the Catholic Church. And therefore, the important church leaders surrounding Rome, they were placed in important leadership role in the church. The very first cardinals, then they were deacons of the 7 regions of the city of Rome. So at that time, city of Rome was divided into 7 regions, and each region will have a deacon. And these deacons, then they were appointed cardinals, so that they were the very first cardinals. Later, the name cardinal is also given to senior priests in each of the parish churches of Rome. And then, of course, to the bishops of the 7 sees surrounding the city. So each bishop will have his diocese known as the see. And in Rome at that time, 7 sees. And so all these 7 bishops, then they were also elected cardinals, plus the senior priests of the parish churches of Rome. So you realize that at the very beginning, the cardinals were mainly the key persons assisting the Pope who were residing in broader Rome. Outside of Rome, the term cardinal started to apply to certain clergy as a mark of honor. So starting with Pope Zacharias, who applied that title to the priests of Paris. You know that France was also an important area of Catholicism in the early period. And these cardinal, who are priests of Paris, the important city, to distinguish them from the country clergy. A reform under Sisters V in the 16th century attempted to provide more cardinals from other parts of the world. But of course, at that time, it was still predominantly European. That means besides Rome and Paris, then other important European cities. Now, the spread of the cardinals to a wider circle of the church only began recently, especially the recent popes, Paul VI, and then John Paul, Pope Benedict, and our current Pope Francis. Traditionally, the cardinals were granted the privilege of wearing the red hat, started by Innocent IV, Pope Innocent IV. And then since then, it had become the symbol of the cardinals. There are 2. You see that there's the red one, the round one, small skull cat is known as a suggetto, and then the squarish one is called a biretta. So they have both the smaller round one and the bigger square rich biretta. And then of course their garment red. The cardinals, they are divided into 3 tiers. The collection of all the cardinals is known as the College of Cardinals. And then they have a structure of 3 orders: cardinal bishops, cardinal priests, and cardinal deacons, originated in the reform of Urban II in the 11th century. Now, do not be confused with the term, the 3 terms here, bishop, priests, and deacons, because these ranks do not necessarily correspond to a cardinal's rank of ordination. So the bishop of a diocese may be a cardinal priest, and he's not known as a cardinal bishop. He's a bishop of the diocese, but his rank among the College of Cardinals, he is a cardinal priest. Got it? So these 3 tiers, the first tier is known as cardinal bishops. So who got to be appointed as cardinal bishops? They are all cardinals, but there are 3 tiers. So this title, cardinal bishop, is given to successors of the bishops of the see just outside Rome. We mentioned it from the very beginning. They were the very first cardinals until now. The bishop of the sees just outside Rome. These are the cardinal bishops. And there were 7 of these sees in the 8th century. Then later on, the number was reduced to 6. Prior to 1962, these cardinals had full jurisdictions in their respective see. Later on, they preserve only the title without any of the functions, which may pass on to a bishop actually residing in that see. And then in 1965, Paul VI, he created cardinals from among the Eastern Catholic Patriarchs. We know that the Catholic Church has the Latin Catholic bishops. We also have the Eastern Catholic Patriarchs, equivalent to our bishops or archbishops. And in 1965, Pope Paul VI created also a few cardinal bishops of the Eastern Catholic Patriarchs, who are the rulers of the patriarchal sees in these different areas. So the second tier of the College of Cardinals, known as cardinal priests. And they are the successors of the early body of the priests serving the titled churches of Rome. But since the 11th century, this order, the cardinal priest, has been extended more internationally. And so some bishops of important sees in the world, they are cardinal priests. They are bishops or archbishops of their dioceses, but appointed, installed as cardinal priests. So our Cardinal William Goh is a cardinal priest. Then we have cardinal deacons. They are the successors of the 7 regional deacons. By the 10th, 11th century, there were 18 deaconries in the city. In the reform of Urban II, assigned a cardinal deacon to each of them. Later on, a cardinal deacon must also be at least a priest. At the beginning, they were literally deacons, but then also given the title of cardinal. But later on, a cardinal deacon must be at least a priest. And John 23rd and Paul VI after appointing cardinal deacons who were not bishops, also immediately consecrated them as bishops. So nowadays, then a cardinal is almost automatically also at least a bishop. In the past, even a deacon, a priest could be a cardinal. But nowadays, since the time of Paul VI, then that cardinal would also be a bishop, at least, if not an archbishop. So it's the Pope alone who appoints cardinals, no one else. And then, since John the 23rd, he decreed that the cardinals must already be bishops. And the names of new cardinals are first announced in a private consistory. And then they receive the red biretta and the ring, the cardinal ring, symbolic of the office in a public consistory. So in this recent case, we heard of the election of Cardinal William already a month ago in that private consistory. And so the name was announced. But he went to Rome only a few days ago, and on the 27th, in that public consistory, that he received the biretta. In the history of the church, there may be cardinals known as impestore in the press, meaning that their names were in the heart of the Pope, but not publicly announced for sensitive political reasons or whatever. The number of cardinals in 1586, Pope Sixtus V fixed the total number of cardinals at 70. Of course, 70 trying to mirror the 70 elders of the Old Testament and things like that, of whom 6 were cardinal bishops, 50 were cardinal priests, 40 were cardinal deacons. But in 1958, John the 23rd eliminated the restriction of 70. Paul VI and then John Paul II appointed many new cardinals worldwide. Initially, cardinals mainly were in Rome, and then extended to some other European countries, and then gradually to other parts of the world. But it was since the time of Paul VI onwards, the recent popes were all very keen to appoint many new cardinals worldwide. Under Paul, there were 145 cardinals. Under John Paul II, there were 185. Now, the cardinals have one very important role with regard to the election of Pope. First, by decree of the Synod in 769, only a cardinal was eligible to become a Pope. Then later on, during the pontificate of Nicholas II, cardinals were given the right to elect the Pope. And for a short time, this power was assigned exclusively to the cardinal bishops. Remember the 3 tiers we mentioned: cardinal bishops, cardinal priests, cardinal deacons. But by the Third Lateran Council, it applied to the whole body or the College of Cardinals. In 1970, Pope Paul VI directed the cardinals should relinquish the right to vote for the Pope when they reach the age of 80. So a Pope who has the right to vote and to be elected must be below 80-year-old. And then Paul further decreed that the number of voting cardinals be limited to 120. Of course, quite a biblical significant number, 70 and 120. But then this restriction was later on confirmed by John Paul II, but after that, changed again, we will mention. So these cardinals, when the Pope died, the Holy See is called vacant, the Sede Vacante. That means the chair is vacant. And for a short time during that period, then the Cardinal Chamberlain the one in charge of the papal administrations, is temporarily in charge, and he in charge of the basic functions of the church, just for the church to continue, because it's a very short period, so there's no need to make any big decision, and he couldn't make any big decisions. So he works with some cardinals as his assistants, and the main duty was actually to have the funeral of the Pope that passed away, and then also to prepare for the conclave, for the election of the new Pope. So actually during that period, that was his main job, so to say. And the conclave is called within about 15 to 20 days after the death of the previous Pope. And that conclave is the gathering of eligible cardinals aged below 80 for the election of a new Pope. In 1996, Pope John Paul II provided that under certain circumstances, the majority of 2/3 for election of Pope could be superseded by a simple majority. So all the while, the election, you have to get 2/3 majority, otherwise you have to revote again until you get the 2/3. But John Paul II seems to want to say that on special occasions, a simple majority is sufficient. But then Benedict XVI, however, quickly restored the traditional requirement of a 2/3 majority. I think there was wisdom in restoring the 2/3 majority, so that the new Pope will have a substantial majority of support. Current number of cardinals as of 27 August, which very recent considerably, there are 226 cardinals. And of these 226 cardinals, of whom 132 are below 80. So if there's an election now, then these 132 are eligible to vote in the conclave to elect a new Pope. So the number of restricting to 120 was abolished. So as long as you are the cardinal, age 80 and below, you are eligible. The roles of the cardinals, they participate in the papal consistories, which generally take place annually, in which matters of importance of the church are considered and new cardinals may be created. So that is the main assembly of the cardinals, by which the Pope will discuss more important issues with the cardinals. And some of the cardinals who are of working age, they are appointed different areas of responsibilities known as congregations of the Roman Curia. That means something like a parliament in the country. So the minister, each minister has a portfolio. So some of the cardinals will be appointed as the heads of these congregations and of the Roman Curia. Roman Curia is equivalent to like the parliament and the cabinet. And the central administration of the Catholic Church, of course, rested in Rome, Vatican. So the Roman Curia serves like the cabinet of a democratic country. One of them, known as the Cardinal Secretary of State, he would represent Vatican to the foreign government. So he acts like the foreign minister. And other candidates, in fact, the majority of the candidates who do not work in the Curia mostly function as archbishop running their own archdioceses. So for the time being, Cardinal William Goh, main duty is still the Archbishop of Singapore, unless and until the Pope appoints him as one of the head of a department of the Roman Curia. Unless that happened, then he would be kind of taken out from the diocese and serve in the so-called central body of the church, that is Vatican. But otherwise, then he will be the Archbishop of the Archdiocese. just like many other cardinals, like the cardinals of Thailand, the cardinals of Philippines. Many of them are still serving, except one of the cardinals of the Philippines. He was appointed to the Curia. I will mention him especially because one of the Asians. So cardinals are often selected from current or former heads of important offices within the Roman Curia. So either you are already the head of the Roman Curia, then when you are appointed that head, you may not be a cardinal yet, but then later on, the Pope will confer the cardinal red hat to this head of the office, or a former head after his retirement, so even beyond the age 80, as a sign of recognition of his contribution to the church. Otherwise, then it would be usually archbishops leading dioceses or archdioceses around the world. And often they are the more prominent dioceses or archdioceses in their country. Now, among the list of Asian cardinals recently appointed, that means the very recent one, 27th of August, you have Archbishop of Korea, South Korea. And then you have an Archbishop who is a prefect of Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. And then also of Archbishop of Hyderabad Diocese, Archbishops of India, and then of East Timor. So they are the Asian cardinals recently appointed. And of course, our very Archbishop William Goh. Now he's the third cardinal from the Bishops' Conference of Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore. Singapore is very small. We are only one archdiocese. And so we have to join the regional bishops to form the Bishop Conference. In fact, within this Bishop Conference of Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore, Brunei, of course, only one diocese. And then Malaysia, you have East Malaysia and West Malaysia. So West Malaysia, you have 3 dioceses, and East Malaysia, you have even more. So Malaysia itself have many dioceses. So we formed together, we formed the Bishop Conference of Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore. So prior to Cardinal William Goh, we have Cardinal Sede Fernandez of KL. When he was elected cardinal, he was already retired and past 80 years old. And so that election was more in recognition in some way for his contributions to the church in the conference. And then we have, after that, Cardinal Cornelius Sim of Brunei. But unfortunately, even before he received the red hat, he had cancer and then passed away while having treatment. So his term was very short for Cardinal Cornelius Sim. And then this time round, the Pope elected Cardinal William Goh, in a way representing the Conference of Malaysia, Brunei, Singapore. Cardinal William Goh, in one of his recent sharing with the clergy, mentioned that he would like to place 3 emphases as a cardinal. Now, being a cardinal, he recognized that he has a wider role. His concern should not be just the Archdiocese of Singapore. And so he mentioned that, yeah, he would pay greater attention to the Asian church, the Asian reality, and see in what way he can of contribution. And secondly, he recognized that the multiracial and multi-religious nature of many of the regions, including our own Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, as well as the Asian church. And he would like to place greater emphasis on the promotion of interracial and interreligious harmony. And then the third main concern would be the care for humanitarian reliefs. So by pointing out these 3 key areas, he is signifying his awareness and desire to serve beyond the archdiocese, to care for the wider church. Of course, if he is being appointed to other key roles in the church, then his contribution and influence in that sense then will be even wider. But for the time being, his main role is still the Archbishop of Singapore. Let's give you a little bit of interesting fact about the church administration. The Congregation of the Evangelization of Peoples is responsible for missionary work and related activities. So since the very big establishment of this office in Rome, great effort has been put on evangelization and missionary work. Previously, the congregation was known as a propaganda fide. But then, now the term is not even the congregation, and it's not propaganda fide, because since 5th of June this year, this congregation was merged with the Pontifical Council of Promoting of the New Evangelization into what is known as the Discatory of Evangelization. And interestingly, it's headed by Cardinal Luis Antonio Douglas, the previous Archbishop of Manila. And so you see now quite a few Asian cardinals heading important portfolio in the Vatican administrations. And also to take note that the bishops have different administrative offices, like what I mentioned, the discatories of evangelization. The important office of the church is the tribunals, which looks into issue pertaining to canon laws. And there are three wings. They are known as the Apostolic Penitentiary, the Apostolic Signatura, and the Rota Romana. And Pope Francis recently reformed the Curia and named the administrative officers discatories. In the past, just prior to this, known as congregations, now known as discatories. And in that document, he stipulates that even lay persons can be the heads of the discatories. So it's quite a big reform. So in the past, it has to be at least a bishop, but now even lay person or priest, but most of the time bishops. But nowadays, the Pope said, even lay person can be head of the discatories. And one good example would be Professor Vincenzo Buonnomo, was appointed president of the disciplinary commission of the Roman Curia. So it looks like Pope Francis is preparing and willing to appoint more lay persons, religious brothers and sisters, to key position of the Roman Curia in the near future. And so maybe one of you, who knows, one day could become appointed as even lay persons. But of course, you are not cardinals, but you are a lay leader, lay professionals who are competent in, for example, in the Vatican Finance Office. Most likely in the near future, the head of the Vatican Finance Department will be headed by a lay person. Okay, thank you. So this is my short presentation about the cardinals.
Okay, thank you, Father. Okay, so I'm sure you all have many questions, right? So please ask a question or even comments. I start first, Father. I got a question. You mentioned that Cardinal William Goh, if he, after a few years, gets posted into or gets appointed to head, a function in the Vatican, so does that mean that we will have another election of a new bishop?
Appointment, not election. Bishop is by appointment. And yes, because then there's no one here to administer the Archdiocese of Singapore. So if he's being called to Rome, then then we would need another bishop here.
Okay. There's one in the Zoom chat. I mean, just one person was asking. Any significance of first mass celebration by newly created cardinal? So,
No,
with this first mass.
no special significance. But every cardinal is also given a church in Rome as his like his chair, where he is the bishop of that church. But because he's not really residing there, so it's only a titular. Actually, the meaning of the word titular means you are only having the title, but not the actual seat there. In the past, for example, Singapore had no bishop. It was the bishop in Malaysia that is taking care of Singapore. That's why you have the title titular Archdiocese of Singapore. And all the historical documents at that time were signed and acted under the title of titular Archbishop of Singapore. So even today, Singapore actually have an actual bishop residing here. We still call it a titular. That's more for legal purpose. But this titular title that he has in Rome, where he so-called owns a church there, yeah, is there. And so as the titular bishop of that church, he would kind of claim his position by celebrating his mass there. And cardinal bishop stand a chance to be a pope? Yes, because he can be elected because he participates in the conclave, so he may be elected if the other cardinals supported him.
Father, Anthony here. I saw one of your slides had penitentiary as part of this one of the roles.
Roman officers.
Yeah, can you explain that one a bit more?
Well, the church, we have canon laws, right? So if someone have some issues breaking the canon laws and all that, which require some disciplinary actions, so that is the office that deal with that disciplinary actions.
Yeah, but it's not like jail, lah. Right?
They may melt out some punishment.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Father, what is the purpose of the titular church in Rome?
Well, because in the past, as we said, the starting, the cardinal has always been the priest and bishop in Rome. So they just kind of keep the traditions that the cardinals is also kind of a member of that.
So is he expected to do any?
No actual duty in that church. He's only a titular. It means in name. So the actual work will be entrusted to another priest or bishop.
Okay, there are two questions here. I'll just put them together. Must there be a certain number of Catholics before the Pope appoints a cardinal? And then from the same person, is there a cardinal in People's Republic of China?
No, there's no hard and fast rule in that sense. But of course, usually the archbishop must be of a certain importance, and Singapore importance is in the sense of Southeast Asia, and we are part of this conference of Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore. So we had one cardinal, Shang Guoxi of Taiwan, who just passed away recently. And there was a cardinal of I can't remember, Guangdong, or then he migrated. I mean, it was during that difficult period of communists took over and so forth. So he went to the States. And prior to him, there were other cardinals who died already. Currently, no, none in mainland.
So there's a question on the cardinal hat. why is there only 3 folds on the cardinal hat instead of 4?
不知道。
Okay, Francis and Eve, 我也不知道。Anyone, any comments, questions on anything?
Yes, I have one question, Father. We know that the Pope retires at a certain age. How about the cardinals?
No, the
Is there-
Pope don't retire at a certain age. In fact, most
Oh.
in the past, a Pope had been carried on until he died. So the retirement of Bishop,
Or it's the bishop, is it?
that was a very exceptional thing. But it looks like Pope Francis look like I cannot. If people say that he seems to have that intention also, if he feels that his health doesn't permit him to continue his responsibility, then he may resign also. But in the past, they work until they dropped it.
Oh, okay.
So
Thank
for
you.
Pope. But for Bishop, the official retirement age 75. He will submit his resignation to Rome, but Rome can extend his duty beyond 75 if he's still fit.
So I assume Cardinal has no retirement age.
Yeah, it's a title. It's not in that sense, it's not a duty. It's not a post.
Father, you mentioned earlier that to elect a pope, the cardinals have to be below 80 years old.
That's right.
Is this for health reason or because retirement is 75, right?
Yeah. So I think they presume that if you're more than 80, then your health would not be as good to assume the duties. Yeah. I think it's arbitrary. Why not 75? Why not 76? I think it's just arbitrary. They look at the assistant cardinals and they think that, yeah, even if you're 80, probably you can serve for another 5 years and 10 years.
Father, what's the most appropriate way to address Cardinal William? Is it Your Grace or Your Eminence? Or?
For a cardinal, then it's eminent. Then depend on whether you're addressing him directly. If you are talking to him in person directly, you're addressing him, then you say your eminence. But if you are referring to someone else, say you're talking to me and you're referring to him, then you say his eminence. It's just like his grace and your grace. When you talk to him, if he's an archbishop, you say your grace. But if you are talking to someone else about him, then you say his grace.
But is it customary to kiss the ring before you address?
In the past, it has been, but nowadays, people are less familiar with that. So some may, some may not.
Thank you, Father.
Anyone with any more questions? Any comments also can?
I have one micro question. In his telegram, he called himself William Cardinal Go. How come not Cardinal William Go?
This is just a kind of a conventional practice that they call it. Yeah, it's just a convention. But nowadays, in our day-to-day speaking, usually we just say Cardinal William Go, because William Cardinal seems to be very difficult to articulate. So he wouldn't mind, and other people wouldn't mind also.
With his eminent appointment, do you or the Archdiocese of Singapore anticipate any changes to the governance of our Archdiocese, or will there be
we don't know, because it's something very new. So but as I mentioned, his main role now is still the Archbishop of Singapore. Just that in his sharing, he mentioned that he's aware now that being a cardinal, he should look beyond Singapore. but his main role, his primary role, is still the Archbishop of Singapore. But whether he finds his duty too strenuous and therefore he need an assistant, we need more assistance, or not. So it's up to him to make the necessary arrangement. Yeah.
So, Father, if he has to, his scope is widened to look beyond Singapore, so he can actually tap on the local priests like yourself, to support his mission, which is beyond Singapore.
Yeah, of course, he's entitled to tap on any resources that he sees fit.
So he can also do the same for the other countries as well, the other Malaysia, Brunei as well.
No, he has no jurisdiction over them. Because they have their own archbishop, they have their own bishops and all that. But he can express his concerns, so to say. Anyway, the bishops, they meet at the conference of Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei annually. So there are some issues that we discuss there. Likewise, the Asian bishop will meet also at the Federation Conference of Asian Bishops. Recently, for example, we have this prayer for the 50th anniversary of the Federation of Asian Bishop Conference. So they will also discuss issues at the Asian level. But they won't kind of interfere in the administrations of other dioceses.
It's probably a very proud moment for all Singapore Catholics to have a cardinal finally, and we all pray that he'll do a very good job for all of us, I'm sure.
Yeah, so the local church, you should know by now, we are having a Thanksgiving solemn mass on the 8th of September. So the local Catholics will gather at St. Joseph's Church, Bukit Timah for the Thanksgiving and celebrations.
Father, with a cardinal, does it reflect the maturity of our local church here in Singapore?
I can't say what is the main reason for a pope to elect a particular person, but definitely I think the pope sees the important role of a particular region. For example, East Timor has got a cardinal, so I think the pope sees the importance of that region and also the indigenous people, and then for Asia, Southeast Asia, and so forth. I think the Pope want to emphasize that the church in this region do have important role to play for the good of the universal church.
So Father, one asks, any significance why the Mass is in St. Joseph's, Bukit Timah, and not in Cathedral? Or is it just because of the logistics?
Yeah, it is because of the size. Only St. Joseph's can accommodate that number of people.
Okay. Are there cardinals from orders, example, Jesuits, or the other orders where?
Yes, but usually the person had already been appointed a bishop or archbishop already. The Pope himself was a Jesuit. But usually, if a person is appointed a bishop, then he kind of temporarily also relinquishes his status as a Jesuit or Franciscan or whatever.
Father, you say that there are 3 levels of cardinal: cardinal bishop, cardinal priest, and cardinal deacon. Is there a period they have to serve at one level before they become like His Eminence William, Cardinal William? When would he be able to go up to cardinal bishop?
As mentioned, because it has been a tradition, so to say, that the cardinal bishops are those from the surrounding sees of Rome. So these are the people. So unlikely that a bishop from elsewhere would become a cardinal bishop in that sense.
Got it.
Anyone with any questions? Do you really shy to
In the
unmute or you
election
can't
of a
speak?
pope, then there's no distinction. As long as you're cardinal, whether it's cardinal, bishop, priest, or deacon, you can be elected pope.
Has there been in the history a priest getting appointed a cardinal before becoming a bishop?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Even deacons.